Okay, so get this. Imagine a future where, like, living underwater is as normal as going on, like, a weekend trip. You know,
Wow.
we're talking full-on underwater habitats,
Yeah.
not just submarines or temporary research stations.
Right.
So that's what we're going to be diving into today.
Cool.
We're going to be exploring the feasibility and challenges of humans living, like, beneath the waves long term. And we're basing all this on an article from IE Spectrum
Right.
called "An Ocean Engineering Project Will Build an Undersea Habitat."
Very cool.
So,
Yeah, this is it's not science fiction anymore.
yeah,
We're seeing some serious real-world projects popping up.
that's right. And one of the most ambitious projects out there is the Sentinel Project
Right.
by an organization called DEEP.
Okay.
And they're aiming to create a modular habitat, kind of like an underwater apartment complex, that could house a crew for like a month at a time at a depth of 200 meters.
Wow.
I mean, that's deep enough to put you in the mesopelagic zone, an area just teeming with unique life forms that we rarely get to see.
Yeah, and that depth opens up a whole new world of possibilities for research and exploration.
Absolutely. So how do they plan on building something so complex underwater?
Yeah.
Well, get this. They're using a combination of 3D printing and welding with a team of like 6 robotic arms.
Wow.
It's like a high-tech ballet of construction happening underwater.
Yeah, 3D printing is a game changer for underwater construction.
Yeah.
It allows for incredibly precise fabrication in a much more controlled environment than like traditional methods.
For sure. And they're currently testing this technology in an abandoned quarry in the UK.
Okay.
So before they build the full-scale Sentinel, they're working on a smaller, more portable habitat called Vanguard.
Oh, cool.
It's like a test run, a chance to gather data and experience before committing to the larger project.
Right. Think of Vanguard as a stepping stone. It's designed to support 3 people for about a week at a depth of 180 meters.
That's still pretty deep.
Yeah.
And speaking of spending so much time underwater,
Mm.
you wouldn't have to worry about surfacing every few hours in these habitats because they use saturation diving.
That's right. Saturation diving allows divers to stay underwater for extended periods by saturating their tissues with gases like helium,
Right.
which means you could spend more time exploring the ocean depths and less time worrying about decompression.
Right.
Plus, Vanguard will even have an external pod providing like a 96-hour backup life support system.
So you're telling me they have a backup for their backup?
Yeah.
That's impressive.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about what life would be like in Sentinel.
Okay.
Okay. 200 meters below the surface, connected to the surface by an umbilical link, which is basically a lifeline providing gases, food, water, power, and communication.
It's like an underwater city with all the essential amenities.
Yeah, but living underwater for a month straight,
Yeah.
it's got to have its challenges, right?
Absolutely. The pressure at that depth requires specialized materials for the habitat structure. It needs to be lightweight and acoustically insulating to provide some peace and quiet from the constant hum of machinery and the sounds of the deep sea.
Yeah, I hadn't really considered that. It wouldn't
Yeah.
be the peaceful, tranquil environment we imagine when we think of the ocean. It could actually be quite overwhelming.
Exactly. Creating a sense of peace and quiet within the habitat would be crucial for the well-being of the crew. But it's not just about noise. Think about the potential for feeling isolated and confined.
Yeah.
They'd be living and working in close quarters with the same small group of people for a month.
I can definitely see how that could be a challenge.
Yeah.
It makes you wonder what kind of people would thrive in that kind of environment.
They'd need to be adaptable, resilient, and great at teamwork.
Yeah.
Beyond the technical skills, they need a certain personality type to handle the psychological pressures of isolation and confinement.
Almost like astronauts.
Yeah.
They go through rigorous psychological evaluations.
Yeah.
It'd be interesting to see what kind of training program DEEP develops for their aquanauts.
Absolutely. And then there's the challenge of training for saturation diving itself.
Right?
It's not a walk in the park. It requires extensive training and careful monitoring. DEEP wants to make this training standard for undersea researchers,
Yeah.
but currently it's not widely available.
Okay, so we've talked about the technology, the construction, the depth, and the challenges of living underwater for weeks on end.
Uh-huh.
But what about the why? What's the big payoff for all this effort?
Well, think about the potential for scientific discovery. Imagine being able to study deep-sea ecosystems up close, observing marine life in their natural habitat, and conducting long-term experiments without the limitations of surface-based research vessels.
That's an amazing thought. We could learn so much more about the ocean and potentially even discover new species.
Absolutely. And not just about marine life. We could also gain a deeper understanding of geological formations, underwater volcanoes, and even how climate change is impacting the deepest parts of our oceans.
We've covered a lot of ground so far: the ambition of the Sentinel project, the innovative technology, the challenges, and now the potential rewards.
Right.
It's incredible to think that underwater living is becoming more of a reality.
Yeah.
Let's take a moment to think about everything we've discussed so far.
Mm.
What are your thoughts, listener? What piques your curiosity about this idea of living beneath the waves? We'll be back shortly to continue our dive into the fascinating world of underwater habitats.
It's good.
I've been thinking about how cool it would be to wake up every morning surrounded by the ocean.
Yeah.
I feel like having an aquarium outside your window, but you're actually in the aquarium.
Yeah, there's definitely a certain romantic appeal to that idea.
For sure. But let's be real. There's got to be more to it than just the view, right? What would daily life actually be like in a habitat like Sentinel?
Well, remember how we talked about the need for acoustically insulating materials?
Yeah.
That's not just about comfort. Imagine the psychological impact of constant noise from machinery or even just the sounds of the ocean itself.
Oh, yeah. I
Yeah.
didn't really consider that. It wouldn't be like the peaceful, tranquil environment we imagine when we think about the ocean.
Right.
It could actually be quite overwhelming.
Exactly. Creating a sense of peace and quiet within the habitat would be crucial for the well-being of the crew. But it's not just about noise either. Think about the potential for feeling isolated and confined.
Right.
They'd be living and working in close quarters with the same small group of people for a whole month.
I can definitely see how that could be a challenge. It makes you wonder what kind of people would thrive in that kind of environment.
Yeah, they'd need to be adaptable, resilient, and great at teamwork.
Yeah.
Beyond just the technical skills, they'd need a certain personality type to handle the psychological pressures of isolation and confinement.
Almost like astronauts.
Exactly.
They go through rigorous psychological evaluations.
Yeah,
It would be interesting to see what kind of training program Deep develops for their aquanauts.
absolutely. And let's not forget about the habitat itself. The article mentioned that Sentinel is designed to be modular.
Right, like building blocks. So it's not just like a fixed structure. They can actually expand it or reconfigure it as needed.
Oh, that's what makes it so innovative. They could start with a core module for life support and then add specialized pods for research labs, living quarters, maybe even a gym or a recreation area.
Wow, so it could actually evolve and grow over time.
Right.
That's pretty cool. Okay, so let's fast forward a bit. Sentinel's up and running.
Mm-hmm.
We've got our team of super adaptable aquanauts living and working 200 meters below the surface.
Okay.
So what kind of research could they do that wouldn't be possible from the surface?
Well, think about it. They'd have direct access to the deep sea environment. They could study marine life in their natural habitat monitor, ocean currents, collect geological samples, even observe underwater volcanic activity.
Be like having a permanent research station right in the heart of the ocean.
Precisely. The possibilities for scientific discovery are pretty mind-blowing. We could unlock so many secrets about the ocean that have remained hidden for centuries. We could finally start to understand how climate change is impacting the deep sea.
This is all very exciting, but I have to admit, a part of me is also a little nervous. Is it really wise for humans to establish a permanent presence in such a fragile and unexplored environment?
Yeah, that's a valid concern. It's a question that scientists and ethicists are grappling with right now. The key is to proceed cautiously and responsibly. Deep has emphasized their commitment to minimizing the environmental impact of their projects.
So it's about finding a balance between scientific advancement and environmental stewardship.
Exactly. We need to learn from our past mistakes and make sure that our exploration doesn't come at the expense of the ocean's health.
It's a big responsibility, but the potential benefits are huge. Imagine the knowledge we could gain, the solutions we could find for some of the world's most pressing problems. Who knows, maybe underwater habitats could even help us address climate change or food security.
It's definitely a possibility. But before we get carried away with the what-ifs, let's take a step back and think about the bigger picture. How might the development of underwater habitats impact human society as a whole? How might it change our relationship with the ocean?
Those are big questions. And they lead us to even more questions like, how would these habitats be governed? Who would have access to them? How would we ensure that underwater resources are managed sustainably?
These are all things we need to start considering now as we're on the verge of making this science fiction dream a reality.
It seems like we're entering a whole new era of exploration with a whole new set of challenges and opportunities. Let's take a moment to absorb all of this. What stands out to you, listener? What thoughts or questions come to mind? We'll be right back to continue our deep dive into the fascinating world of underwater habitats.
Welcome back. It's amazing to think about all the impacts underwater habitats could have on humanity, both the positive and the challenges. Yeah, it really does open up a whole new world of possibilities. And while the Sentinel project is super ambitious, it's important to remember that it's not like the first attempt at underwater living.
You're right. We've already seen smaller scale underwater habitats like Aquarius,
Uh-huh.
that research lab off the coast of Florida. Scientists have been living and working there for weeks at a time, studying coral reefs and marine life.
Yeah, Aquarius is a great example of what's currently possible. It shows that long-term underwater habitation is feasible. And while it's nowhere near the scale of Sentinel, it provides valuable insights into the logistics and challenges of living beneath the waves.
So it seems like underwater living is moving from the realm of science fiction to a tangible reality.
It really does. And with that shift come a whole host of questions. How would these habitats impact human society? Could they help us address issues like overpopulation or resource scarcity on land? What kind of new industries or opportunities could emerge?
Yeah, it's mind-boggling to think about. We could see underwater cities, underwater agriculture, maybe even underwater tourism one day.
Exactly. And as we venture into this uncharted territory, it's crucial to consider the ethical implications as well. Who gets to live in these underwater habitats? How do we ensure equitable access and prevent exploitation of resources?
Yeah, those are important questions.
Yeah.
It's like we're on the cusp of a new frontier, and with that comes a responsibility to proceed thoughtfully and ethically.
Absolutely. We need to learn from our past mistakes on land and ensure that we don't repeat them underwater. We need to prioritize sustainability, conservation, and the well-being of both humans and the ocean ecosystem.
I keep coming back to that idea of the overview effect that astronauts experience when they see Earth from space. That profound shift in perspective, that sense of awe and interconnectedness. Do you think something similar could happen with underwater living?
That's a really interesting thought. We might call it the oceanic effect.
Yeah.
Imagine a generation growing up with a deep understanding and appreciation for the ocean, seeing its beauty and fragility firsthand.
It could lead to a fundamental shift in our relationship with the ocean. Instead of viewing it as a resource to be exploited, we might finally see it as an integral part of our planet that needs to be protected.
Exactly. It could foster a sense of stewardship and responsibility that extends beyond national borders. After all, the ocean connects us all.
So where do we go from here? What's the next step in this journey toward underwater living?
Well, continued research and development are crucial. Projects like Sentinel are pushing the boundaries of what's possible. We also need to have open and honest conversations about the ethical and societal implications.
And that's where you, our listener, come in. We've explored the technology, the challenges, and the potential of underwater living. Now we want to hear your thoughts. What excites you about this future? What concerns you?
As we venture into the depths, we need to do so collectively, thoughtfully, and with a deep respect for the ocean and all its wonders.
This has been a fascinating deep dive, and it's left me with a sense of wonder and a whole lot to think about. Thanks for joining us on this journey into the future of underwater living. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep diving deep.